Welcome back to episode 53 of On the Wild. I'm your host, Riley Keenan. With me, as always, ANUJ Basker. We have finally completed a year of On the Wild.
Yeah.
I think our first video was right after the NFC and AFC championship games, right during that Pro Bowl span.
Yeah.
And because
there's an extra week, so technically like we're at the same spot. We uploaded our first episode on January 30th. This one's gonna go up on January 29th. So yeah, we're at a year. It's crazy.
Full circle. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's nice to be here. Thank you for everyone who's tuned in over the last year. We're expecting to make it another year, and however many after that. We love doing this every week. So, and once again today we're talking about football. Once again, the NFL playoffs have been incredible at this point, and it's probably been the best one I've seen thus far. Every single game this past weekend was great. And I guess we'll just dive into them. The first one we saw was Cincinnati against Tennessee Titans, and 19-16 victory. What did you see from this game?
My major takeaway is that Joe Burrow does not get rattled no matter what is happening in the game. He got sacked 9 times, tied for a playoff record, and it didn't affect him at all. He kept his head down. He kept working. But I will say Ryan Tannehill kind of cost the Titans the game. Their defense played great. AJ Brown was playing great as well. You just throw it up to him, he was going to come down with it. And he threw 3 interceptions. Tannehill did. I know last week I said like what he's done this year has been impressive considering all the injuries that they've had. But he chose the wrong game to have his worst game of the season. Yeah. And going forward, I know they just signed him to an extension last offseason, but he's kind of what's holding the Titans back. They have everything in place. They have Derrick Henry, who I know just came back, and he didn't really look like his usual self. Like he even got stopped on a 4th and 1. Don't usually see that. Yeah. You have AJ Brown, Julio Jones. I know they got injured this year, but they have everything you need to be a really good team. And I think, and the defense obviously played well against Cincinnati, 9 sacks, held them to 19 points. But I think Tannehill is what's holding them back from being a perennial like Super Bowl contender.
Yeah.
I don't know. To me, Tannehill is an average to above average quarterback. But if you want to beat Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen and Joe Burrow and Herbert, once the Chargers kind of figure it out, you're going to need that guy at the quarterback position. And I don't think Tannehill is that. So that was kind of my major takeaways from the game. But I am very happy that Cincinnati's in the AFC Championship game. I wanted them to win. I picked them, but that was kind of more like a picking with my heart over my head. I'm happy they pulled through, though.
Yeah, and you kind of see the duality between the two quarterbacks. Of like Burrow, every big moment during this game, he came through. Obviously, at the last few moments of the game, they're tied. He makes that big throw to Jamar Chase, and that sets up the McPherson field goal. You talk about those Tannehill turnovers. They all came at extremely pivotal moments in the game. Obviously, the first drive of the game throws an interception that gives the Bengals a field goal. He throws an interception in the red zone when they should have scored a touchdown. They had every opportunity to score a touchdown. They couldn't get it done. And then obviously on the last series of the game. So every time a really big moment came, Tannehill didn't deliver. And like you said, I think that's what's stopping the Titans from being a perennial force in this league. They have everything going for them, it seems like, aside from throwing the ball. Even though I agree, he is very much so an above average quarterback. I would take him over a lot of guys in this league, but he hasn't been able to reach that upper echelon that he, kind of showed glimpses of this season and last season, but he hasn't been able to take that next step. And I mean, you can't talk about Burrow enough and the resiliency to get sacked 9 times. I mean, I think it broke a record. He's tied with, their Hall of Famer, but it's incredible what he was able to do. And obviously, the blitz counter, Burrow is one of the best against the blitz that we've seen this season, even though the offensive line has struggled. And it sucks that the blitz comes, but that allows a lot of single coverage for the 3-headed monster, Boyd, Higgins, and Chase. And I think we're going to see a lot of that in the Chiefs game as well, because they're going to be blitzing, I'm sure. So it's going to be an interesting matchup. But Cincinnati, it wasn't a convincing victory, but it did feel, there was never really a moment of doubt in my mind. Yeah. I kind of always saw they were going to be able to pull this game out because Tennessee, they weren't battling back at any real point in the game, but they never really had it in their hands. I'd say that. And Henry I don't want to say he didn't show up. It was, his first game back since October after a fractured foot. Like there's only so much you can do. But like I said, with Akers and Michelle, I think that's the same thing here with Foreman. Obviously he broke off a 45-yard rush, but 4 rushes, 66 yards. I think you got to keep giving the ball to him. He's more of an elusive back. He's going to give you a quick burst of speed, which I think you needed in that moment of the game. Whereas, obviously Henry's a power back. Obviously he's fast as heck, but I feel like going to Foreman a couple times in that game would have been big. And obviously you talked about the 4th and 1 rush. I don't think you can't rush the ball there in that moment. Obviously you don't have the fullest faith in Tannehill there to make the throw, but you got to throw the ball on 4th and 1.
Yeah, because it's so obvious that you're gonna run.
Yeah,
I think just like, well, it's a kind of a lose-lose, because if they passed it and they didn't get it, they'd be like, oh, you have Derrick Henry, why didn't you run it? So it's kind of a hindsight thing. So can't really blame them for running the ball, but yeah, it was kind of obvious.
It's a tough one.
Yeah.
But yeah. Is there anything you want to mention before moving on to the surprise?
The Bengals kicker is the most confident kicker of all time. Maybe that.
I love that.
I love that. Yeah.
It's awesome. It's nice to when kickers and punters have a little bit of swagger, because they deserve it. They don't have the biggest moments in the games, but when they come in there, you're getting iced by a timeout, game's on the line. There's no more clutch moment than a kicker, kicking 40, 50-yard field goals.
Mm-hmm.
And to go in there just knowing that he's going to make it, you love to see it.
And he's a rookie too.
Yeah.
They got their kicker for the next 20 years. It's crazy.
Yeah. The Bengals are in good shape right now. Mm-hmm. But moving on to the night game of Saturday, we saw the 49ers take on Green Bay. This absolutely ruined my parlay. We would have been perfect. Perfect, man, going into this next round. But obviously the Niners take down the Packers. I mean, they had constant pressure in that game. They've 5 sacks. I think they held Green Bay's offense to 263 yards. A lot of the season we questioned, what is the Packers' weakness? Is it their offense? Clearly not. Defense, no, they figured it out. It's the special teams. They allow a blocked field goal. They allow a blocked punt for a touchdown. To start the second half, they allow a 45-yard kick return, which gives the 49ers all the momentum in the world. And when the game's on the line to block the field goal, they have 10 men on the field. So it's quite baffling from a team that has such good coaching in LaFleur and have a lot of veteran presence. But this is the time where we really put it on Rodgers, I think, for the first time, because before we could always really blame the defense. Obviously the special teams is to blame, but he couldn't score at the end of the day.
Yeah, as much as the special teams kind of cost in the game, and that's really what this game came down to. If you're the MVP for the second straight year and you kind of always talk about having home field advantage, like last year you said, I've always just wanted home field to go through Green Bay. Like, this is your chance to do that, and you didn't get it done. Even though the block punt is what tied the game up, you can't score 10 points in a playoff game, especially at home in the elements when the quarterback on the other side has never thrown a pass in a game that's where the temperature has been, I think, under 40 degrees Fahrenheit. I don't know what that is in Celsius, but you can't score 10 points, especially considering they got a touchdown on their first drive. So after that, they only scored 3 points after that. So they just kind of stagnate the whole game, especially with all the noise and like what he did last offseason. He kind of like making the Packers kind of like amend to all of his demands. Like he ruined my Super Bowl pick. That's what I'm mad about.
Yeah.
And just, I don't know. It'll be interesting what happens this offseason though, because the Packers are about $40 million over the cap. And we all know that Rodgers kind of, after the game, didn't assure whether or not he was coming back. So it'll be interesting to see, because this is their year to capitalize on what they had, because they probably had the most complete roster in the NFL, considering Jair Alexander came back, though he wasn't completely healthy. There was one play on the Deebo Samuel run that, with the shoulder that was hurt, he kind of turned away and tried to tackle, which led to him missing the tackle. So Darius Smith made a pretty big impact in his first game back, but this is the Packers' year, and they just didn't capitalize.
Yeah. I noticed like Rodgers seemed kind of hesitant in the game. There were throws that he would make all season long, all career long, that he wouldn't make in this game. And obviously there's a small narrative with the Packers this season of like, it's just Rodgers and Adams. I mean, we talked about it a bit. It's obviously not. This is a very complete team. But when it comes down to just passing the football, those two have a great connection. And it seemed like they were forcing it in this game when there's a lot of guys over. You look at that last big throw, you got Adams in double coverage on a post route, and he tries to throw a bomb to him like it was Cooper Kupp.
If you watch
he's in double coverage, and Lazard
in bird's eye view, you watch it. Lazard is wide open at midfield.
Right there.
You're at least getting in the field goal range. He may even score.
Yeah.
So he just flat out missed him.
Yeah, he's wide open on 3rd and 11. That takes them to, halfway down the field, and then that allows them to either kick a field goal or even score. But yeah, he seemed like he was forcing throws at times, but at the same time he was very hesitant. There were a lot of times during the game where someone was wide open, he just didn't make the throw, and it seemed kind of weird. But all in all, you look back at this Packers season, it was very successful. This was the worst game that the Packers have played since week 1. And, couldn't have come at a worse time. I don't think Rodgers will be back. I think he'll go to either Denver or Pittsburgh.
Denver's a lot more interesting now because they just hired a couple hours ago. They hired the Packers offensive coordinator, Nathaniel Hackett, as their head coach. So maybe that would appease to Rodgers a little bit more, considering he knows Hackett, obviously. I'm assuming they have a decent relationship, if not a good relationship. Which will make the learning curve of going to a new team a little bit easier. But yeah, I would say Denver or Pittsburgh are probably my top 2, or maybe even the Giants as a dark horse. Yeah. But I always look at the Giants as a spot for a quarterback because they have a lot of draft picks, and I don't think Daniel Jones is the answer. But their new GM kind of came out and said that they were going to build an offense around Daniel Jones. So.
Which I don't really get that. I think they got to go and get a quarterback. Like, to me, this team is another one of those teams right now that with a quarterback, it makes them I wouldn't say a contender, but a playoff contender in terms of, they got a great running back in Saquon Barkley and a good backup in Booker. The wide receiver, Shepard, Golladay, Slayton, and Tony. Kadarius Toney had a really good rookie year with not a lot of opportunity as he's the 4th guy. And then Evan Ingram's solid. And then you got a good defense. So you bring a good quarterback into this system, they can thrive, and let alone Aaron Rodgers. Guys coming off most likely back-to-back MVPs, so I would love to see him in New York. I think that'd be awesome. But
Raiders too. I've heard the Raiders.
Yeah, I think here's my thing. I think if Tom Brady retires, I think he'll stay in the NFC. But if he stays, I think he'll go to the AFC. And I don't necessarily think it's like a fear thing. I just think it's just the way it would roll out.
Mm-hmm.
But it also, it would be cool if Brady were to leave and Rodgers signed with Tampa Bay and goes, I'm going to play with your team and I'm going to throw 60 touchdowns and 6,000 yards. That would be cool.
That'd be funny. Yeah. But we'll see. It'll be interesting for sure. Because Aaron Rodgers, I don't even know. He's a very weird dude.
Yeah, he is.
We'll see.
But there's so much we can say about the 49ers, obviously, in little time. But it came down to Deebo Samuel once again. We talked about him being the X factor guy. There's 2 playoff games in a row where his running of the football on 3rd down won the game for them. Mm-hmm. Obviously the field goal did, but that allowed them to put in position. And it's remarkable because both play calls are so surprising and yet they're very obvious at the same time. You go and think that you're running the ball on 3rd down and you need a conversion, but the defense doesn't see it coming, even though he's the one guy on the field you should be looking at.
Yeah.
And what I find absolutely remarkable, I just saw this stat before we started. Garoppolo is 4-0 in the playoffs when he doesn't throw a touchdown. He's played 5
he keeps getting away with it. He keeps getting away with playing terrible in the playoffs.
He's thrown 2 career playoff touchdowns, and that came in the Super Bowl against the Chiefs when they gave the game away. So, I guess next week you can't throw a touchdown if you want to beat the Rams. But it's pretty wicked. But speaking of the Rams, we had our Sunday afternoon playoff game against the Buccaneers. This was the game everyone was looking forward to. You got Stafford versus Brady, 2 of the best defenses in the league. What did you see from this game?
The Rams came out hot. Obviously, we all saw, and Brady came back, gave me PTSD. Just a point off of 28-3. It was 27-3.
I really wanted them to do 2-point conversion there just to be like, you know what, Brady? See if you can do it again.
Yeah. But it was just self-inflicted mistakes by the Rams. The fumble on the 1-yard line by Cam Akers, Cooper Kupp fumbling, the snap that went the bad snap after the Von Miller strip sack, back-to-back turnovers, and then you had the Cam Akers fumble at the end of the game. It was really the Rams' fault that the Buccaneers got into the game.
Absolutely.
I want to give Brady credit, which I will. He led a pretty big comeback. Obviously the 70-yard touchdown to Mike Evans late in the game. But the Rams let the Bucs into this game and were kind of choking, and they just kind of figured it out at the end with the 2 passes to Cooper Kupp. So I think the Rams could have easily won this game in the third quarter. They really could have put them away early, but they let the BUCS back into the game and never really put them away. But thankfully, they won it at the end for the sake of Rams fans and Stafford fans, because if he lost that game, it would have been an outcry in the media.
Yeah, this game was big for Stafford and his legacy, because obviously going into this season, the whole narrative was, did he not make the playoffs because he was with the Lions, or did he not make it because he just couldn't get it done himself? And these two games have proved that it was not Stafford's fault. They never had a great system or a great roster in Detroit, and they still don't, unfortunately. But Stafford was great. He was so calm and poised during this game, and obviously that throw to Cup was the biggest throw of his career. I think that was an absolute bomb, and that's they don't make that trade in the offseason. Goff doesn't make that pass. He not only can make that pass, he wouldn't have made that pass. And quite honestly, I don't even think Cooper Kupp would have made that catch last year, because obviously he's always been a great receiver, but he just went to another level this season with Stafford, and he just looks like he has so much more confidence with Stafford. And obviously OBJ, you could see the same thing from him. And I wish Robert Woods was playing, because three of them would be balling together. But I love what we're seeing from Stafford here. On the other side of the field, Brady didn't come out hot. He's not really an initial drive kind of quarterback. He'll come out decent, but we knew he was going to come alive in the second half, which is something I just find crazy. We were watching the game at our house here, a couple of people over, and just the first half ended. There wasn't a single person in the room that was like, yeah, this game's over. Every single person knew that they were going to be able to come back in this game, maybe not tie it, which they did, but we knew what Brady could do. And that throw to Evans was huge. Fournette was running great. But, I mean, at the end of the day, it came down to Stafford having the ball at the end, and he brought it.
Yeah, I was talking to one of our friends during the game, and when the Rams, when Brady threw the pick at the end of the first half, and obviously the Rams fumbled, but when he threw that pick, he was like, I'm turning the game off. The game's over. I was like, slow down a little bit.
No, yeah.
If it was any other quarterback, all right, cool. But it's Tom Brady. Regardless that he is 44 years old, it's still Tom Brady. He's gonna at least make it a game, and he almost won the game.
He almost did. And then now he has that. I mean, did you see the post on Instagram yesterday? A little weird. It feels like it's. I mean, it's not clear whether or not he's retiring, but it kind of looks like he did. And it's the first time he. Yeah, I think so too. It seems like the time. And he even said he doesn't equate the loss to failure, which is something I don't resonate with Brady in the past. Every time he's lost, it's been like, okay, next season we got to go win a Super Bowl. That's my job. Now it seemed like he talked about the way they fought, the way they battled, and they really did. They did battle, but it does seem his viewpoint of football has changed a bit. So I could see him, kind of just going back to his family and enjoying that time, which he does deserve. There's really nothing else he can accomplish to elevate him even more.
Yeah, he was talking kind of like he was satisfied with everything he's done, which he should be. He's the greatest quarterback of all time. But he was talking his kids and his wife have done so much for him as a player. It's time for him to give back. Yeah. And just talking about how in the past it would always be well, what's your favorite ring, Tom? He'd be the next one, right? Yeah. Now it's kind of oh, I'm happy with what I've done. I have nothing else to prove. He even said he doesn't want a farewell tour because that would take the competition away from the game. So everything to me is pointing towards him retiring. At this point, I would say it's more 80% that he is going to retire. I've also read something that Tampa Bay would be shocked if he came back.
Wow.
So, pleasantly shocked if he came back. So they're even expecting him to retire. So
wow.
It's gonna be a crazy day, because our whole life Brady's been in the NFL. He was in the NFL before we were even born. Yeah. So the NFL, he's always been there. So we're kind of seeing an era end with him. Peyton Manning's been retired, but Brady's retired last year. Roethlisberger retired today. Rodgers is really the only one left.
Yeah, it's a crazy time. I will say though, I rewind back to that Jelani episode when I said, I think this may be it for Tom Brady.
And we laughed at you.
You laughed. And listen, you were right. You were absolutely right, because he had an incredible season. He could potentially win the MVP. But there is a little glimmer of truth that it is the end of Tom Brady potentially. But I'll give it a 50-50 there. I was definitely wrong about the skill level he was going to be playing with, but this could see the end of Brady's career. So
yeah. You wouldn't think he was going to retire, because he of the season he just had, he's playing he had one of the best seasons of his career this year.
Yeah.
In the MVP running, but I think this will be a strict like family decision. Like if he didn't have kids, if he didn't have a wife, I think he'd play until they would have to drag him off the field. But
yeah,
considering he has family and his kids are 14, 12, and 9, I believe.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like the prime time to kind of spend time with your kids.
It really is. It's the perfect age group for them too, because obviously the one that's 14, you only have so many more years when he's still or he or she's still in the house. So you want to be with your kids at this time, and I think there's no one that deserves it more than him. It's been an incredible career if it is saying goodbye, but we have someone to replace him. What were you? Sorry.
As a Falcons fan, though, I could not be more happy. He may be gone. Sean Payton's gone. The Panthers are a mess. The Falcons are winning the division next year. That's what I'm trying to say.
Bet on it.
At 8-9.
At 8-9, yeah, via NFC West kind of thing. But yeah, like I was saying, we may be seeing the end of two great. I mean, we've seen the end of two great careers potentially this season. Obviously, Rodgers could be gone, but we see two absolute stars in the form of Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, who put it all on the line in that game. It was the greatest playoff game I think I've ever seen. Definitely the best divisional, totally. But this was
crazy. I was texting somebody during the game, and about a little bit into the third quarter, this was literally right before literally 2 plays before the Josh Allen 75-yard touchdown to Gabriel Davis. It's like this game compared to the Rams game is like so boring. Like I'm just on my phone the whole time, and then the game just took off.
Yeah, it really did. I mean, in the first quarter, it wasn't fast paced or anything. Like there were a couple 3-and-outs, like they were still working through the things, but it was 14-14. And right as that half went, we were making some food and we were talking in the kitchen. I was like, it's going to come down to whoever has the ball last. Because I thought of that because they kept showing Josh Allen on the bench when Mahomes was on the field in that first half. And it was just kind of like this, he had a face of a guy that was like, I'm just waiting for my turn. It wasn't any pressure. It wasn't, I hope they don't score here. I hope the defense can stop him. It was, I don't care what he does here. I'm going to go out next drive and do better. And they just kept topping each other the entire game. It was amazing to watch. I mean, you talk about those final 2 minutes, and the overtime period. Allen threw 5 for 7, 102 yards, 2 touchdowns. Mahomes 10 for 13, 188 yards, 2 touchdowns. That is better than Baker Mayfield in an entire game. Like it's incredible.
That's better than like 70% of quarterbacks in a whole game.
Yeah. That 4-minute span for Patrick Mahomes was better than Jimmy Garoppolo in those first 2 games combined in the playoffs. It is incredible what the two guys were able to do. There wasn't necessarily a loser in this game. There was a winner, and the other team is just going to come back next year firing even more. We talked about, the Bills defense, number 1 defense in the NFL. They didn't show it in this game, especially on that last drive when, you're up by 3. You are playing prevent defense, not wanting them to go to the sideline. That allows the entire middle of the field to be open.
And they let timeouts.
They have 2 timeouts. They let Tyreek go down the middle, and it was like that should have been the learning moment because the Chiefs obviously call a timeout right after that. The Bills, I don't know why they're not going, okay, let's collapse the middle. Let's allow some guys to be on the outside as well. They don't do that.
Kelce, have you seen the mic'd up with Kelce? He said, if they're going to play like that, the seam is going to be wide open. And you see Mahomes at the line be like, do it, Kelce, do it, Kelce.
Yeah. He ran a freestyle route. I love when guys do that too, because obviously you want to stick with your system. You want to trust in your coaching. But sometimes as a star player like Kelce is, and Mahomes is throwing the ball, sometimes you just got to do it yourself and see and take what the game gives you. And they gave them so much opportunity there. They threw the game away. I think the Bills will come back so much better next year, especially defensively. But
I don't know about better because they're losing their offensive coordinator to Miami, most likely. Brian Daboll is the favorite, and he's probably going to go to Miami as their head coach. Leslie Frazier may also get a job. I've heard the Giants may be hiring him because they just got the Bills assistant GM. The Bills are losing a lot of pieces.
They are.
Maybe not players, but organizationally, they're losing some players. They're losing some pieces, and that's maybe just as important as losing a key player. Like they're obviously going to have Josh Allen. They're going to be a playoff team. We all know that. They're probably going to win the AFC East as well. Mm-hmm. But I think just just assuming that they're going to be the exact same team like the Chiefs are. I don't know.
That's fair. I mean, at the end of the day, I still think they're going to have a better defense than the Chiefs. And I don't know. I just see this offense improving because obviously we know Stephon Diggs is great. And I'll say one thing about him. It was kind of funny seeing all of the promos of him watching the Chiefs win last year. And it was like, I'm going to come into this game and play incredible football, dominate. He got 7 yards. But at the same time, 3 catches, 7 yards. Wasn't a great game. But a lot of those Gabriel Davis plays, you look at Stephon Diggs' coverage, it was so critical to a couple of those touchdowns because it took the pressure off of everybody else. And the game came to him, and Allen was able to give it to someone else. Gabriel Davis, 202 yards, 4 touchdowns. Are you kidding me? I had a bet on him to score the first 2 touchdowns of the game. He scored the last 4, I think, instead. So that kind of sucked. But, I mean, it was crazy to watch. But, yeah, I think the Bills will come back. I think they'll come back better, not because that they're going to, add more pieces. They're definitely going to lose a lot of people, but they're going to grow. Josh Allen's is going to be a year older. The run game's going to be better. Stephon Diggs is now in the system for 3 years. Dawson Knox is a really good tight end. Obviously, he had a couple bad drops in that game, but I just see this Bills team getting better because Sean McDermott is a phenomenal coach.
They need to make a blockbuster move. Like, I've seen a lot of stuff about Christian McCaffrey being available. Go get Christian McCaffrey. Like, trade your first round pick. You're a pretty complete team. Go get Christian McCaffrey.
Go get maybe like a Melvin Gordon or someone of like someone like that, because Javonte Williams is going to take the load for Denver. Melvin Gordon's a great guy to have that can also receive the ball in the backfield, because that was one of the things I was talking to Joe, who's a Buffalo fan. He wasn't too happy about the way they were kind of playing passive a little bit in that first half, throwing a lot of screen routes, running the ball a lot. Obviously, it chewed up a lot of clock. They scored a touchdown first drive of the game. It was like 7 minutes, but yeah. They're too passive, and I think that with another running back in the system that can be elusive, but that can also be a dual threat, it makes that offense so much more better.
Right.
Better off, I'd say.
Yeah. But I will say this, though. I think the only way that the Bills beat the Chiefs going forward is if they get home field. They need home field advantage. They play the Chiefs twice in the playoffs, and they've both been at home. I mean, Mahomes has never played in a away playoff game. So
insane.
I think Buffalo needs to get home field and just have that over the Chiefs, who I think they have a chance to beat. Like, they can obviously beat them in Kansas City, but I just would never pick them to beat them in Kansas City. But if that game was in Buffalo, I would have probably picked Buffalo to win that game. So
for sure,
because the Chiefs playing in Kansas City, that's the hardest place to play in the NFL.
It's tough.
And Buffalo's right up there. Yeah, and Buffalo's right up there too with Seattle when they were good, New Orleans, but if they get that game in Buffalo, I think it bodes well for them, for sure.
Yeah. I do find it, though, I think the Chiefs played their best game of the season in this one. Obviously, the defense wasn't, paralleled, but the offense was great. And I think if they gave anything less than their best in that game, they lose. They lose that game to the Bills. The Bills played a near perfect game. And obviously, it came down to whoever had the ball at the end. But I do want to quickly talk about overtime because people are very angry about it.
Yeah,
I understand it, and there's jokes about there, beer pong redemption rules are better than the NFL overtime, but it's the way it is. It's the rule book. It's the way it is. Whoever had the ball there first in overtime was going to win the game. For the first time in a while, tails bit someone. Before usually tails always ended up winning it, but that was the critical error of this. Yeah, that was the critical error of this game for the Bills. It's calling tails, but yeah, at the end of the day, whoever had the ball there was going to win the game. I think. We talk about it as the rules are bull. The Bills should have had a chance to come back. I think if the Bills got the ball first and they went down and scored, I don't think there would be as much outrage, because I think a lot of it's because of the Chiefs win. And we see this so often. When the Warriors made the finals, it was Stephen Curry, Klay Thompson, these guys are great. Second year they go, it's they want them to lose. It's the same thing here with the Chiefs.
The Chiefs got screwed over by when they lost to New England.
Patriots, exactly. Patrick Mahomes' first season in the league, he doesn't get the ball first in overtime. Brady gets it, and he goes down and wins it. It's the same thing. It's all just coming full circle. It was his first year starting. Yeah. I'm sure Josh Allen will beat Burrow next year in the playoffs in overtime on the first possession of the game, and then he'll continually go on to everybody else. But yeah,
I liked his answer though. I really liked his answer after the game, saying that if that was us in that situation, we'd be celebrating. So we can't really complain about it.
Exactly. Yeah. There's not.
I will say though, I think they should change it for the playoffs. I think just looking at the history of the current rule in the regular season, teams who win the coin toss win the game 52% of the game, which is about 50-50, which is fine. In the playoffs, though, they've had 11 playoff games with these rules. 10 of the 11 have won the game who won the coin toss. The only one who didn't win was New Orleans when they got screwed over because of the pass interference. So I think based off of that, they should give both offenses a chance in the playoffs, just considering the history of that. But
yeah,
keep it for the regular season because, I mean,
yeah, you need to get a winner most of the time. It's just you're trying to get someone to win the game. But yeah, I would like to see the rules change, but at the same time, I don't necessarily hate them because yes, one team gets the opportunity, the other doesn't.
Not that bad.
But football is two sides of the ball. It's offense and defense. You got to
play defense.
Yeah, play defense. You got the best defense in the league. You're talking about yourselves being the best defense. Go out and show it. And unfortunately, you didn't. That's okay. I mean, it's not great, but next year you live and you learn and you do better. You can't blame the ruling. It's the rules. It's the way it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
But with that being said, we move on to the next round, the conference championships, and both games are looking super interesting and honestly tough to predict, to be honest, because the way they match up. You look at, I mean, San Francisco and the Rams, I guess we could start with. We know McVay and Shanahan, been longtime friends. They've worked together for a while. They've played each other 10 times. I think Shanahan's got the lead 7-3 over him. I think he's won the last 6. Yeah. So, he's got the bragging rights over him right now, but this is when it really matters. I think they played each other twice this season. Both times the 49ers took it. The first meeting was very convincingly. The second was close. It was a big comeback from the Rams.
The Rams blew it, yeah.
Yeah, and I think the last time they played, Niners sacked Stafford, I think 7 times with 21 pressures. And they didn't even really blitz that much, which is what Stafford feeds off of. So that's very scary. If a team's not even blitzing you and they're getting to you 7 times, that's something you need to look out for. And I think this game will come down to the run. I think that's going to be huge. Elijah Mitchell is going to be massive for the 49ers in this game. And I think, like I said before, I think you got to give it to Sonny Michel. I think you have to give it to Akers, 24 rushes for 48 yards, I think it was. Not good. And obviously the Buccaneers pass or rush defense is phenomenal, and so is the Rams. So you're going to have to give it to someone else who's been playing all year and has it ready to go. You can obviously defer to Akers on multiple times, but I think Michel has to be that number one guy.
Just do both. Just give it to both. Split the carries.
Yeah, go back and forth. Yeah, absolutely. You have to change it up. Michel didn't even get a single rushing attempt that game, and I think it did hurt him a lot because he's a bit smaller than Akers. I don't necessarily think he's quicker, but because he's not coming off that, torn ACL, he's going to be a bit faster and more agile. So I think you got to use him more. I think this game will definitely come down to the rush as it did in the last 2 games that these teams have played. But it's going to be very close, and I really don't know which way to go with it. I'm going to go with the Rams because I want to stick with my bracket, and there is the opportunity for a Chiefs-Rams Super Bowl. But if I was betting money right now, betting my bank account, I might go with the 49ers solely because the run defense is phenomenal from the Niners. Their pass defense is solid. And I think they have a better run game than the Rams do right now. But at the end, I'll say it comes down to running, but Garoppolo, if he doesn't come out balling, which he never really has, to be fair, he needs to play a safe game. He needs to game manage like we talk about all the time. I'm going back to myself. Obviously, I went with the Rams. I'm taking the Rams all day because at the end of the day, I have so much more faith in Matthew Stafford.
I think everything would point towards picking the 49ers here, considering their history. They've won 6 straight. They won both games in the regular season. And I don't know if this is flawed logic, but I think it's really hard to beat the same team 3 times in one season.
Absolutely.
You look at last year, the BUCS and the Saints. The Saints blew them out twice. Week 1 and in week 10. Remember that debacle on Sunday night. And they came back around in the playoffs. And Brady didn't play an amazing game, but he did what he needed to do. The defense showed up, and they won that game. I think the Rams do the same thing here, where I think they'll take advantage of Jimmy Garoppolo's injuries specifically. He has a shoulder injury. He has, a thumb injury. And I think that Stafford kind of takes advantage, doesn't take advantage, but he continues his hot streak that he's been on the last couple of weeks with his 2 playoff games. And I think Odell has a pretty big game. I know last week I said that they're going to try to take Cooper Kupp away. That didn't happen. You can't take him away. He's going to get the ball regardless. And I think Odell will show up the way he has been. I think that Higbee will play a huge part. I think the Rams will be able to control the run
Yeah.
a little bit on the defensive side. Aaron Donald and Von Miller played outstanding games last week. Leonard Floyd did as well. Got in Brady's face a lot. I think 1 out of every 7 passes he got pressured. So I don't think the 49ers offensive line is a little bit better than the BUCS is right now, considering that the BUCS had injuries. But I think the Rams will be able to get to Garoppolo, control the run a little bit. I think the Rams will take it in a close one, but I got Rams for sure. Because I just think it's too hard to beat a team 3 times.
Yeah, we even see it in basketball as well. 2 seasons ago, the Milwaukee Bucks beat the Lakers twice. I think, or no, they beat them once earlier in the season. You saw it with the Clippers; they beat the Lakers twice. But when it comes down to a really big game near the end of the season, the Lakers were able to win both those. I think we'll see a lot of the same here with the Rams. It is tough too because the Niners are coming off injuries. They're having to play with injuries. Debo's back's not great. Kittle's hurting. Fred Warner and Bosa are both hurting. These are all massive, big-time players for this team that are playing with injuries. So the Rams just have to play a very safe game, I think. And the Bucks were able to come back in that game last week because of the turnovers that the Rams had. Akers turns it over twice. Kupp has a fumble that rarely ever happens. So just unfortunate situations. And then you look at the Niners against the Packers. The Niners consistently capitalized on the Packers' errors, and that's what allowed them to win the game. So you put those both in. The Rams, a team that was making a lot of errors, 49ers are capitalizing. The Rams have to play extremely safe, and the Niners have to be ready at any moment to take over the game. Because
And this game is going to be a neutral site. Like last time they played in LA in the final week of the season, the Niners fans took over the stadium. But I know the Rams are only selling tickets to people in LA, which, by the way, is kind of it's kind of messed up. I can't lie. Yeah. But there are a lot of Niner fans in LA, and I'm sure that it'll be about a 50-50 split of Niners and Rams fans. So I don't think the Rams are going to have that big of a home field advantage. I think it's going to be more of a neutral site. So throw that out there.
Yeah. But all in all, I'm going to stick with the Rams here. I got the Rams going to the Super Bowl. But I think it will be a very close game and a fun one.
100%.
Yeah. And then we move on to the game I'm extremely excited for. Burrow versus Mahomes. And week 17, we saw an absolute shootout between the two of these teams, with Evan McPherson obviously kicking a last-second field goal to win, like he does so well. Obviously, they clinched the AFC North with that win. It's kind of cool that both these division or conference championship games were massive games to the end of the season for all these teams. The Bengals were able to clinch over the Chiefs. The 49ers, with the win in that last game, they clinched a playoff spot as well. So there was a lot riding on those games. There's even more riding on these ones now with the trip to the Super Bowl on the line. I mean, the last time they faced, the Bengals were able to get the dub. They held Kelsey and Hill, I think, 11 or 12 catches, only 65 yards and a touchdown. That's going to be very hard to do again. But if they can come even remotely close to that, it's going to be extremely huge for the Bengals defense, and it's going to allow the offense to do even better. But what do you think of this?
I don't want to say it, but I'm sensing a Chiefs blowout. I really think the Chiefs are going to blow them out, just because they're coming off the best game of their that they've had all season. The Bengals, though they did win, aren't coming off of the hottest win. And even against the Raiders, they were impressive, but they weren't blowing the Raiders out or anything like that. So I think with the way the Chiefs are coming into this game and the experience, that game that they played in week 17 was in Cincinnati. It's a whole different game going into Kansas City. I think that with that and the experience, I think the Chiefs are going to blow them out. I don't want that to happen. I honestly want the Bengals to win the game because I want a Rams Bengals Super Bowl, but I don't see them beating the Chiefs. Like I want them to, but I really don't see it.
I don't see it either, to be honest with you. I think it's not in the cards for the Bengals just yet, just with the way that Mahomes was able to play in that game and everybody surrounding him was just constantly battled. They have an all-in mentality with the Chiefs. And I said earlier this year, they're still mad about that Buccaneers loss in the Super Bowl. They played abysmal. The offensive line was awful. Mahomes played good, but it was still one of the worst games he's played, unfortunately. And the run game wasn't there. this is time for the Chiefs to really prove themselves, and they did against the Bills easily. They convincingly beat the Steelers. It's now time to take down, the guy that's almost, Mahomes is almost playing himself right now. Like, just 2 seasons ago, he was going up against Brady, who was the guy in the NFL, and he just couldn't do it. Now Burrow is the shining star that's coming up, and Mahomes is that guy, because you can say it's Rodgers, you could say it's Brady, but they're not here anymore, and they haven't been able to progress. And he had an incredible season even after struggling at the beginning. So it's going to be very difficult, but it's going to be a fun game. I don't think it'll be a blowout, but I don't think it'll be necessarily close either. I think it'll be like a 10 point, 13-point game for the Chiefs, but I think they're really going to run it up. Neither of these defenses really impressed me too much. So it's all about just limiting turnovers and just not making mistakes at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think with the way that the Bengals offensive line looked last week, and the Chiefs defense isn't that bad. Like they've since I think week 7 or 8, they've been the number 1 scoring defense or something like that. So, or been at least top 5. So they're not that bad. Their pass rush got better when they got Melvin Ingram. They obviously have Chris Jones still. Like I think they're just gonna put a lot of pressure on Burrow, and I think Chase will have a big game like he did last time.
I think
I think the Bengals will pick. Yeah, something like that. But I think the Bengals will put up big numbers, but I don't think they're going to be able to keep up with Kansas City, and I think they'll pull away late in the game.
Yeah, I think unpredictability for the Bengals is incredibly important. Just with obviously I don't think the Chiefs will be blitzing a lot because Burrow does so well against the blitz, but they're going to be able to get to him. Last time they played, I think they only had 3 sacks. Jones had 2 of them. I shouldn't say only 3 sacks. 3 sacks is still very impressive in a football game, but Burrow's got to get everybody involved the same way he did against the Titans. It can't be, obviously there's times where he's going to go, I'm going to Chase here. He's going to be the first guy I'm looking at, and I'm throwing a bomb to him if he's in single coverage. But with Uzomah, with Boyd, with Higgins, with Mixon in the backfield, there's so much available that he has to use everything he has. He can't do what Rodgers did and just looking at one guy. He needs to focus on everybody else and let the game come to him and just prove to I don't think he has anything to prove necessarily yet. Just he's so young in this league, and he's played so incredible this season. He's been so fun to watch. And I absolutely love what he's doing in those interviews, talking about, we're not the same old Bengals. This is a new team. We're ready to fight. We're not underdogs. We're a team that's going to go out and ball. And I absolutely love that. And I'm so incredibly excited for this game this weekend.
Yeah. And they've exceeded every single expectation of anybody. Nobody thought they were going to be here. This is a successful season for the Bengals, even if they do lose this game. So
yeah,
they'll lose. They may lose this game, but they're not losing in the long run, which is the whole point.
Yeah. Bengals fans should be very optimistic.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's a good place to wrap up. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for listening. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Comment who you think is going to win the AFC and NFC Championship, and we will see you all next week. Take it easy.
Stay well.
Peace.